I was very, very pleased when Kim said, I'm doing a reading about peace, and I thought of you. It really is an honor, because I'm always in some way working towards peace. And in my reflections of it and meditations on it, there's so many different aspects to it. There's that importance of having peace within yourself, so that you can interact with others, right? And those moments that challenge us to have that peace. And how do we bring that into the world, and how does the world reflect it back towards us? And sometimes it doesn't. So my selection tonight is a little bit of a mix of these phenomena. So I'm going to start with a poem about a feeling of peace that recently just kind of came over me like serendipity. I am not the walrus. I am the caterpillar. No nerves fluttering around like hungry butterflies. I am contented by the myriad of miniature legs that are moving me forward. Growing without pain. No envy of wings, just a marching song to sing. Never to war, but over the garden walls, through the gilded halls and littered corridors, never bored and in the flow, a spring in the step of every tiny toe. And like this young inspirational man just talked about, peace is in your body, right? And there's moments when you are challenged where it's not there. But the good news is that we have the ability to heal. Somewhere in between ancient wisdom and modern medicine, magic can happen. Chemical, physical miracles, where what was crushed once again becomes spherical. Molecules made whole. Homeostasis under control. Revived and alive, tempered by the pain, and tenderness regaining peace, piece by piece. This next poem I want to read was inspired by another poet, my friend E.K. Keith, who went on a mad tear and wrote like 30 poems in 30 days, and they were on the subject of peace, love and understanding. So in one of her peace poems, she said, peace is ordinary. And so I found myself writing this poem, and I realized it kind of mirrored that a little bit, and maybe kind of continued that thought. Peace is unpopular, often presented as sappy, packaged and sold as girly. Peace isn't ready for prime time. Peace doesn't get in line with the lineup of lethal legacy that wants peace to keep its nose down, its hair off the ground, to get in the game where it's pound for pound. Peace doesn't compete. Peace is not part of the machine. Peace does not get airplay, sometimes not even on a Sunday. Sunday. Peace doesn't worship kings, because peace already knows the color of blood.
Ooh.
Oh.
I'll send this next one out to Kim personally. I think she'll know why when it gets there. I think. I hope. Under the Rainy Freeway. This is a San Francisco poem. Under the rainy freeway, thunder claps and rain falls through the slats of a freeway roadbed, falls over the walls, one hell of a bird bath. Can't seem to detach my mind from the underground. Below the street, I want to dig up Mission Creek. To free the soil and streams below the concrete. I don't care if I have to ditch this car for a canoe or a kayak, this job for a fishing rod, these edifices to live with all the sacrifices of nature, of clean water on the shore, of shelters that may only get swept away by a storm, instead of the norm of thuggish policy. a sanctified ignorance of humanity. Let me trade my fish for nothing, my nothing for fish. For fish, freedom. My freedom for nothing, my nothing for you, my farmer, my neighbor, my friend, not my competition, not on the street which is named division. I want it to be a line to unite, not some unsightly overpass making it too easy to pass over the misery that imperialist capitalist psychology has brought to pass as a planned promise that has not made good on what would otherwise be a reality no less unknowable. So several years ago, I realized this is an intergenerational reading, so I guess I'm one of the middle-aged poets tonight. I'm not in high school anymore. I know, it's just funny. When I read it, I'm like, oh, I guess that's me. So
I read that and went, oh, Paul.
No, it's totally fun and fine, but it was funny. Anyhow, in my mid-20s, I ended up taking this long extended trip in Southeast Asia, and I went to Cambodia. And if you know, a lot of people may know about the history of Cambodia. If you don't, you know, there was a terrible genocide in the 70s, the Khmer Rouge, the group of communist Leninists led by Pol Pot. But the Khmer are really just the Cambodian people, and it was in the time, you know, when the Americans were dropping bombs all over the place and fighting a war in Vietnam. So going to that part of the world was a bit of a challenge, just as an American trying to enter that part of the world. I actually wrote this poem not that long ago, but the trip was many years ago. A shifting Cambodian sky and I lie wasting time, an idle American coming to terms with history. Clouds to calm, but flying in fighting colors, burnt orange, pulsing pink, pale yellow, evening settling after a humid, overcast gray day, whose tears fall heavy in the afternoon, that floods and swamps, streets and ditches, reddened beetle nut teeth gnaw on wishes long lost with the wash of bombing and genocide. Nowhere to hide the bones, the brass bed frames, the chains. A gallery of prisoners' faces held for no crime, for all time, staring at you now. Unclear how these ghosts can ever rest, too locked into professing a human travesty, brotherhood biting at their own blood, emboldened and impugned by carpet bombing, destabilizing sanity, recipient of American foreign policy that plays righteousness as a mask for industry. And 35 odd years after Pol Pot was stopped and American planes had ceased dropping landmines in clusters, my generation mustered the courage to humbly set foot in a country left muted, crying and dying. Youth trying to see past the nastiness of what has been inherited. The Khmer, as curious as we are, of those who come from far away, to look toward each other with learning eyes and pray. Got one more to end on a little bit of a high note here. Actually, before I do that, last time I was on this stage was a few years ago. My niece was 11 at the time, and she had sent me a poem that she wrote, and I was so excited that I decided, you're not hearing any of my poems tonight, you're just going to hear hers. And the first line of her poem was so profound to me. It was in a school assignment to write about, you know, like where I come from. And the first line of the poem, she said, I come from where the white bear sits on the bed that is waiting to be made.
That's so great.
Wow. So there's peace there too, right? Peace in knowing oneself, peace in knowing your surroundings, and peace with the fact that your bed's not made. That's okay sometimes. All right. Here's one to round it off. The last page. The last page is as exciting as the first. What to write to impact the secret reader who finds this collection filled with the wreckage and triumph of so many days and dreams, tears, howls, and moonbeams, travails, and prevailing winds of change. Just one life vibrating to the unspoken, unbroken heartbeats that race and slow, knowing much more than they can say, whose deep message of love pervades through every joy and heartache. Endless ways of searching for solace, stimulation, satisfaction, peace for self, family, friends, and country. The world so worthy of it all. A pen and my hand heeding the call to create.